Jack Astor's following a baseball game. I went to a baseball game with 4 of my friends. I spoke to 2 female RCMP officers and asked them where they were from, and they were unresponsive. They didn't have anything to say. So in passing, I just stated, "Good luck with Saturday." And nothing happened. We got into my cab. Right at the corner here of Front and Simcoe, the cab was stopped by a Toronto police car. And at that point, I was taken by the arm, and a line of questioning began. The first questions were, "What are you doing in the area?" And I explained, I was here with a baseball game. I was in the cab going to my girlfriend's house. At that point, they put me in handcuffs and basically said, "We're going to ask you some questions." The arresting officer was asking me questions about what I allegedly said to the RCMP officers. Then 2 female officers literally got in my face and said, "You don't remember telling us good luck with Saturday?" And at that point, I was like, "Yeah, I said that." What transpired next was just beyond unbelievable. I never thought that anything like this could ever happen to me. During the booking, I knew that, this wasn't a valid arrest. They went into my pockets, took my ID out. They didn't even ask me for my ID in the streets, just helped themselves to it. Didn't tell me why I was being arrested, tell me what I was being arrested with, but no explanation. While they were questioning me on the street, I didn't want to say anything. I said I'd rather remain silent. I don't know what this is all about. I want to speak to a lawyer or duty counsel. That was the wrong answer. That's what made me go to 52 Division. And a booking sergeant from around the table came around, grabbed me by the neck, while the 2 arresting officers held me by the shoulders, took me to a room directly behind me, shut the door. I asked them what they were doing, and they said, "We're strip searching you." It wasn't, "Please take your clothes off." There was no explanation. As soon as the door shut, the booking sergeant staff began beating me in the face. Every time he hit me in the face, he would use an open hand, kicked me in the legs, beat me in the torso. I have defensive bruising just from being like this. At no point did I fight back. I had 3 guys, 2 guys holding me, 1 guy literally beating me up. They just tore my clothes off. They didn't say, "Take your clothes off, we want to strip search you." They didn't explain. Shirt was ripped open. Literally grabbed me by the bottom of my pants and flipped me like this so that the back of my head hit the concrete floor. Completely ripped my clothes off. At this point, I'm completely naked. I have 1 man sitting on me, beating me like this, while the other 2 are holding me down. At that point, I sat around naked for 5 hours, and one of the arresting officers, I believe 8330, if I'm correct, I have the information here, came and asked me to stand. Stood. He took my underwear, which was up against the wall, and kicked it underneath the cell and told me to get decent, because 2 what he explained were detectives were coming to ask me some questions. I asked them for their IDs and if they were in fact Toronto police officers, because they were in plain clothes. And they just took the stance that, listen, we can either help you out with this, or you can kind of continue this way and you're gonna get no help. So I just said, "Okay, that's fine, if I could just have your names." And they looked at each other, and one of the officers said, "I'm Officer C, and this is Officer Sis." They sat me down and started asking me questions about what I know, what is going to happen on Saturday, if I know any information, if I know any information about labor groups, if I belong to a labor group. I had no answers.
So you were arrested and detained, thrown in a cruiser, beaten up, strip searched, all because you said good luck on Saturday.
Good luck with Saturday.
And we saw their enforcers firsthand here in Toronto with the G20. And if you read the stories or listen to some of these interviews or anything like that, you'll realize it was just a bunch of thugs came in and criminal thugs started beating up, assaulting, arresting, and horribly treating a bunch of peaceful, innocent Canadians. They ripped the leg off a 57-year-old amputee and told him to hop to the squad car and arrested him.
And you were a government employee, right?
Yeah, I work for the Canada Revenue Agency.
Oh, okay.
I'm in the appeals section there. I'm an above-the-knee amputee, and the police surrounded us, and the two young gentlemen were trying to help me get up. I fell down, I lost my balance, and I was trying to get up again, and next thing you know, there were 4 police jumped right on top of me. One of them put his knee on the top of my left temple and was just sort of like grinding me into the ground with his knee. They had knocked my glasses off, and I was yelling that my glasses were loose, and then the police said, well, you're resisting arrest. And he said, let go of your arm or else I'm going to break it. But I said, I can't move. The police officer told me to walk, and I told him I can't. Then he grabbed my left leg here, and he ripped it off. So then he orders me to hop, and I said, I can't. And then he said, you asked for it. So 2 police came and they grabbed me under the shoulders like this, and then they started dragging me backwards to where they all had the police vans parked, and my elbows were digging after a while into the pavement, and I was screaming. I was in a lot of pain. They hoisted me up in the air, and then they started hitting me, I guess with their batons or whatever, or their fists. And as they were running me towards the police van, they were saying things like, he's a biter, he's a spitter, he's resisting arrest. So we got up to the police van, they threw me on the ground, and they started giving me these little boots with their boots and hitting me. And I was held at the detention center for over 24 hours. I was never charged. They said they couldn't find my arrest, the paperwork, my arrest report, they never could find it. They never allowed me a phone call or any of that stuff. They wouldn't let me wear my leg. They said it could be used as a weapon, or it might have a weapon inside of it. I felt brutalized when I went through it. When they took me down, the way they did it, I mean, if they had tapped me on the shoulder and said, you're under arrest, I would, I would have complied.
Because I needed to use the washroom, and could he direct me where to go? The riot officer took me out of the crowd by the arm, and then placed me under arrest. I was taken to one of the police paddy wagons, and I was situated among 9 other girls. I asked the police officer where could I go to the bathroom, because that was my quest of getting out of the group. He told me that I could use the paddy wagon. I said, you've got to be joking. I had no choice. I have a kidney that doesn't work properly, and I've never been so disgusted and felt so violated in all my life. Because my hands were cuffed, I couldn't even help myself to prepare to do that. So I had all these strange girls do it for me. That bloody cop stood at the wired part of the door, which was wide open, and watched me urinate. He watched me urinate, and I even addressed him, and I said, that is against the law. I said, do you know what that does? He couldn't even imagine, and neither can other people, how that would affect someone and traumatize someone. But he didn't just do it with me, he did it with 3 other girls. And I don't give a shit who this guy was, a cop. I gave him no goddamn right to look at a girl urinate, because you know what, if it was someone else in the neighborhood that was doing that, they would be picked up, thrown in jail, and charged. It's the most humiliating and embarrassing thing I've ever had to say on camera, but people have to know.
Were inhumane and unnecessarily abusive. There were no doors in the toilets, and most of the guards were male. We were handcuffed the entire time we were in the prison. This was not by accident. It was set up purposely to create a system of psychological violence, and against men and women too, though the men and women experienced it a little differently. The place was cold, there was no place to sit or lie, and if women did act out, they were threatened with internal searches and gang rape. I work on violence against women in war and war rape, and threatening a woman with rape or gang rape is not a joke, and it's not funny. And the police were doing this, and this was used as a way to systematically silence women who were speaking out.
This draconian stuff that they pass under secret, we gotta be more vigilant about, because when we don't, this is what happens. So an educated population is kind of what we need right now. So if you see this makes you mad, do your own research and wake up, please.
Meeting with the police in the weeks before the G20 weekend, basically to understand what the rules would be in respect of the scope of peaceful protesting. At no time did either police force advise the CCLA or any other group of this regulation. Indeed, as their lawyer, I was dealing with their lawyers throughout the legal process in the days before the G20. At no time was I advised of this regulation.
The investigation I'm reporting on today is the first of several public attempts to get to the bottom of exactly what happened here during the week of the summit, why it happened, and what can be done to ensure it never happens again. My investigation focused on the province's role in promoting what became known as the secret security regulation, a little known and widely misunderstood legal measure that was supposed to help the police keep the peace, but in my view wound up contributing to massive violations of civil rights. Some people in the ministry were rightly concerned about the optics of using wartime legislation, but others saw the regulation as mere technicality. So the decision was made not to publicize it. Instead, they quietly handed the police extravagant, sweeping powers under 71-year-old law. Powers that would almost certainly be illegal and unconstitutional under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
And one of the main tenets of the rule of law is that the police will not overreact. The police will only detain people if they have reasonable and probable grounds that they have committed an offense. The Supreme Court has been very, very clear in that regard, that these kinds of restraints are necessary on the police services, otherwise we will end up to be a police state. And that kind of excessive and arbitrary power which the police exercised on that occasion is shocking and appalling in this day and age. And what is more shocking is that no one has come to the fore to be accountable for this crucial undermining of the rule of law.
Reviving this dormant piece of legislation, coupled with the adoption of the regulation, created a legal landscape where people were detained by the police and compelled to identify themselves, answer questions, and submit to warrantless searches, even if they simply wanted to walk away.
But we also know that there may be a small number of people who use that crowd, the anonymity of a crowd, to throw rocks and to break windows and to start fires, and will attempt to incite violent confrontation with the police. They had an idea that this was going to happen. In fact, that was the undertaking they gave to the judge on the injunction. We need the sonic cannon because there's going to be this rogue element. Even if it was unexpected, it doesn't give you the right to arrest hundreds of innocent people.
You're within 5 meters of this wall, so please turn off your video camera.
Okay.
Public Works Act states that, so please.
Because we're
show your identification of these officers.
5 meters from this wall. All right, we'll stop filming. But it's because obviously
Show your identification, please.
You can't do that. There's no legal basis for the police to do that. Unless, of course, they're relying on the Public Works Protection Act, which is wartime legislation. You know, the government, the ministry had its website. The City of Toronto had a website. The Integrated Security Unit had websites. Had ads in the paper, warning about street closures, things that were going to happen. Was there any at one point mention that the police had a right, according to a 1939 law, to arbitrarily detain citizens kilometers away from the fence, to search their belongings, to force them to identify themselves? No, at any time there was not. and that was a conscious, premeditated decision by the authorities. Apart from a coterie of senior officials in government and the Toronto Police Service, no one else was aware of the existence of this regulation or the fact that they would trigger what amounted to martial law in downtown Toronto.
We're at Queen's Park, the same place they came to get.
One public inquiry, not 6, is clearly necessary not only to determine what happened and to place accountability, but to ensure that in the future no government will so cavalierly gamble with and suspend our civil liberties, which are too important for the politicians we apparently have.
For the citizens of Toronto, the days up to and including the weekend of the G20 will live in infamy as a time period where martial law set in the city of Toronto, leading to the most massive compromise of civil liberties in Canadian history. And we can never let that happen again.